All right, everyone, what's up? What's happening? Welcome into another edition of Fast 5 Sports. I am Matt Infield. That is Jacob Gallant. Happy Friday to you all. We've got a jam-packed show today. We've got some Tigers talk ahead of their regular season finale at home tonight, senior night at FedEx Forum. The NFL, like we talked about before, is a 24/7 news content machine. Oh, we've got a very special guest in the building, too. Hold on. Tony Allen in the building, first team. Hey, special stuff ahead of his jersey retirement next week. That's sick. That is the best possible way to start the show. That was awesome. And on that note, we've got a lot to talk about with the Memphis Grizzlies as well. So I think let's start right there. So, by the way, since he just walked in the building, the documentary, The Grindfather, is out on the Grizzlies YouTube channel. I had the chance to watch it or be at the sneak preview premiere. That's a lot of words there. Anyways, I was at the premiere of it the other night. Thank you to the Grizzlies for inviting me. Really well done. You can see it on their YouTube channel. It's about an hour and a half, and they documented kind of his whole life. They went back to the projects in Chicago where he grew up, documented his journey at Oklahoma State. There's a lot of stuff there that I didn't even know about. So The Grindfather out on the Grizzlies YouTube page. They've done a bunch of really good documentaries the last couple of years. So we're checking out.
I got to watch that one.
Grit and grind Grizzlies to talk about there. Let's talk about the current Grizzlies, because right now things are not going all that well for them at the moment. They're on a 4-game losing streak, their longest of the season. We went into last week saying, or about a week and a half ago, saying you've got this 5-game homestand. 3 of them are against beatable teams. Got to capitalize. Instead, they go 1-4 on the homestand. And 3 of them were on buzzer beaters. 3 in a row. The first team since the 2002 Seattle Supersonics to lose 3 straight games on game-winning shots in the final 6 seconds, I think it was, because OG Anunoby's shot was with 5.1 seconds left. So, yeah, and then obviously you cap off the homestand. Wednesday night, nationally televised game. You get another shot. The Thunder is what it is, man. Thunder coming here, beat the Grizzlies 120-103. I thought it was more competitive than the last matchup at FedEx Forum when OKC really kind of controlled that game from start to finish. But listen, we just got to kind of call what it is. OKC, and there's no shame in it, but they are clearly probably, I would say, 2 tiers above the Grizzlies right now. I mean, there is a very clear gap between the 2 teams, right?
Yeah, I mean, they've been the #1 team in the West all year, and it's never really been close. And then we're kind of getting to a point where it's like now the Nuggets and the Lakers have kind of pushed above that Grizzlies tier just because those 2 teams are so hot right now.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there's no shame in losing to the Nuggets, or the Thunder rather, but at the same time, it's like, is anybody going to beat them at this point?
I will say this. I saw some numbers. I went back and watched the game on the ESPN broadcast the other night. Obviously, I've known Oklahoma City is very, very good. I think I kind of underestimated how good they are. ESPN showed a graphic the other night. They are on pace to have the highest point differential in NBA history. They're at I think after the other night, they were like 12.7 before the other night, and they beat the Grizzlies by 17. So it probably raised it by, I don't know, a 1/10 of a point or 2. But the highest all time.
They feel a lot similar to Boston to me, last year's Boston team, in that they're so strong on offense and defense. Like, you can't point to either side and go, that's going to be the problem in the postseason, because they're just unbeatable on both sides of the ball. Yeah,
I asked Taylor Jenkins the other night post-game if that's the most connected defense he's seen this year, because I feel like both times that I've watched them against the Grizzlies, they are always in the right spots. They have versatile defenders that can guard multiple positions. They are so disruptive, and they just make life really difficult. Taylor Jenkins, without a shred of hesitancy, said yes, absolutely. Desmond Bane, same thing. Brandon Clark said that's the best defensive team I've seen this year. And then you've got the MVP favorite, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, drops 41 on your head. I mean, he and a player from my favorite team, Jalen Brunson, who put on a heck of a show last night before he got hurt, so hopefully he's back soon. Kind of similar games to me, just in terms of like the craftiness and the way that they get to their spots. Brunson, a little bit more bully ball than SGA, but man, SGA is just so smooth. That mid-range jumper is so tough to stop, and he's slippery. He gets to his spots whenever he wants to. You can say what you want about how many free throws he shoots, I think I saw a stat. He would still be, I think, top 5 in the NBA in scoring if you took his free throws away as well. So
yeah, he's up to 32.8 on the season.
Yeah, I was on another show probably like 6 weeks ago, and I said at that point I thought Jokic was the MVP, but since then, really since the All-Star break, SGA has kind of taken control of it, and I think there's no doubt about it. He's the favorite to win this award now. Also, to get away from Grizzlies versus OKC, we found out Wednesday night postgame, Ja Morant had another mediocre game, didn't shoot the ball that well. He's really struggling from 3 right now. He's taking a lot of them. And he was back for that game after he missed the previous 2 games. And in the locker room, he gave us a pretty interesting sound on the status of his health, because we found out what we've all kind of suspected. Even if he's playing, he's not fully healthy.
First came back, I know you missed a couple games. So how was it just being back out there after missing a couple of games?
Terrible.
Why?
Because it was. Should have been out. But I was out there. So, regardless, out in, it's going to be something serious. So.
Your shoulder when you get contact and you hit on the shoulder, something happens.
I think I just said I probably wouldn't have played, but I did. You can put your own answer. Regardless of what I say, it's going to get summarized anyway on a little part. So I'll let y'all put whatever y'all want out there for that.
This isn't the first time you played,
I know. I've played like this all season, honestly, but it is what it is. Got to get the win.
With the shoulder thing, like, do you feel like there's something you're going to have to play throughout the rest of the season to kind of deal with it?
I don't know.
So by the end, he was clearly frustrated answering questions about his shoulder. Clearly, it's something that has bothered him, I think, most of the season. Obviously, he had the surgery last year. Really, I think the point in time that you could look at and say that's where things kind of changed with his shoulder was when he ran into the screen from Daniel Tice in New Orleans and sprained his AC joint. And from that point on, his numbers have not quite been the same, especially from an efficiency standpoint. So I will say the idea that he talked about there of if I play, people are going to say something. If people don't play, or if I don't play, people are going to say something. You got to get healthy, man. I mean, I know fans on the internet are going to say whatever they want, and I'm sure I really do respect him for battling through the pain to play in an important game against the Thunder, because clearly that was a game that meant a lot to him and the team in general. So, and even, a 65 to 70% Ja Morant, whatever you want to call it, gave the Grizzlies a better chance to win that game. But big picture now, here's what we're looking at. Ja Morant is not fully healthy. He says he has battled through this shoulder injury for most of the season. He does not know if it's something that he's going to have to deal with the rest of the year. Jaren Jackson Jr. is now out week to week. That ankle injury maybe not as bad as we thought. I'll say I saw him pregame the other night. No crutches, no boot. He was out there with Ja for their pregame handshake. Apparently he was at shoot-around today, dribbling, getting shots up. So hopefully not as bad, but ankles are always tricky. Obviously, he also wants to get to that 65-game count so that he can make, I assume at this point, All-NBA, because I do think that him missing any extended period of time probably means Evan Mobley is now the favorite to win Defensive Player of the Year. But still, if he gets that 65-game mark, he could get to All-NBA and be eligible for a Supermax. But still, he's not healthy right now. Ja's not healthy right now. They're two best players. And now, like you said, they're down to 4th in the West, and they are a half game ahead of the Rockets for 5th. So
Jaren's at 59 games played so far.
Right.
So just needs 6 more.
Right. I think he can miss 3 weeks and be like fine and not really be on the edge too much. If he misses a month, I think that's where, like, if he missed exactly 4 weeks from Tuesday when they gave the diagnosis, I think he would miss 15 games, and then he would have to play the final 6 to be eligible to get to the 65-game count. All that said.
But yeah, you're right in that if he does, even if he hits the 65, Mobley might surpass him just on volume of games
Right,
played.
unless Mobley misses time between now and the end of the season.
But that wasn't a problem last time he won it.
That is also true. That is also very true. So we'll see. I will say a couple of years ago, it felt like Jaren had more favorable, or was a bigger favorite than he is now. So
Yeah, I would agree.
that could play a part as well. So here's what I have to say. Fan base, as we talked about before, fan base is crashing out right now. It is valid to be upset that they are not on the same level as the Thunder. There's no shame in it, but clearly OKC, who, like I've talked about before, has built, to me, in a very similar way to the Grizzlies, they are 2 tiers ahead of the Grizzlies right now. They have, at this point so far this season, they have reached a peak that this Grizzlies group has not to any point so far. And I get it. Like, you have every right to say, wow, like, why couldn't that be us? Like, what are we missing? To be honest, I think the biggest answer is probably you need Ja to get back to his peak form that we saw a couple of years ago. Because, I mean, even 2022 Ja, I don't think was not at the level that Shea is right now. And that version of Ja was awesome, but Ja was never the MVP favorite that Shea is right now. That said, if this team can get healthy, if Jaren comes back from this ankle injury, fine. If Ja's shoulder gets a little bit better, I still think they can beat probably anyone in the West. I will see about the Lakers, because thanks to Nico Harrison for, once again, the dumbest trade in the history of sports. He might have made the Lakers the second best team in the West. We'll see.
I might still say the Deshaun Watson trade was worse, but it's close.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. It's up there. If you're in the same conversation as the Deshaun Watson trade,
no, that's not a
you're
good
in
place
trouble.
to be. I will say, like, so obviously we're gonna need to see more out of Ja going forward without Jaren in the lineup. We've kind of talked all year about that they lose a couple games here and there, and people freak out, and we've been kind of steady on it, like just stay the course. It's kind of the first time I'm like, things could get ugly, because right now you are down to 4, only a half game above Houston. Golden State's really hot right now. You kind of start thinking, well, it's not out of, they're still 4 games above the 7 seed, which is where you don't want to be. But, it's kind of feeling like they could drop to that 5 or 6 seed pretty quick.
And they're much better. And they're much better at home than on the road. So you're going to want want home court in the first round at the very least. And if you're in the 4-5 game, even if you win 4 or 5 seed, even if you win that first round series, you're playing OKC in the second round, and you'd probably like to avoid them.
And then you're looking at 4 games in Houston even before that. So
here's what I'll say.
Currently Houston.
It is just a 4-game losing streak. Now, there have been some bad habits in there. Defensively, they are not good enough right now. Although they were better against OKC, it's just OKC's defense is the best in the league and held the Grizzlies' offense in check. But there are some bad habits in there that they need to get cleaned up. But it is just a 4-game losing streak. And again, 3 of those were on literal game-winning shots in the final 5 seconds. Not to say that they couldn't have put themselves in a position where they weren't vulnerable to lose on a shot like that. But it's pretty wacky. And even one of those was to the Knicks, and the Knicks are really good. The Knicks are a very, very good team. Losing to San Antonio hurt, losing to Atlanta the way they did hurt.
Yeah.
But some of the waxing nostalgia over past players on this team that has come as a result of this losing streak is a little bit wild. I go on social media yesterday, and there are people saying, this is why we shouldn't have got rid of Marcus Smart. We needed Marcus Smart and his playoff experience and toughness, or this wouldn't be the case. We wouldn't be in this position. We saw what Marcus Smart looked like for a year and a half in Memphis. It was, and again, I liked Marcus. Marcus was great to deal with in the locker room. We didn't deal with him much because he barely played. He was always hurt, and he wasn't that good when he did play. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Marcus Smart in 2025 is not getting the Grizzlies any closer to OKC. Who do you think is a better basketball player? Vince Williams, better basketball player. I'm not talking about the intangible stuff. Vince Williams Jr. or Marcus Smart?
I mean, right now it's Vince Williams.
Yes.
But, yeah.
Would you maybe trust Marcus Smart more to playoff series? Probably. Who do you think is a better basketball player, Jalen Wells or Marcus Smart?
I mean, yeah, it's Jalen Wells, but I get the argument both sides, but it doesn't feel like Marcus Smart is like completely right. I mean, he's only playing 20 minutes a game for the Wizards right now.
The Wizards.
That kind of seems like a red alarm. Like, what's wrong with this guy?
So, and don't get me wrong, I was up until the trade deadline, I was very much on the bandwagon of I want to see what a playoff run looks like with this guy on the roster, providing leadership and helping them navigate some of those bumpy moments. At a certain point, though, people were talking about, why'd you salary dump him? You know why they salary dumped him? Because they were like, oh, his stock couldn't have been any lower. You know how his stock would have gotten lower? If he was picking up DMPs in the playoffs, because I think he might have been.
Yeah, that's not out of the realm of possibility.
He might have been picking up DMPs in the playoffs, and then his trade value is gone.
Yeah.
I mean, totally gone. So, and again, I get, in a playoff run, can you trust Jalen Wells and Vince Williams Jr. and all these young guys right now? I don't know. But you know how you get to the level of an OKC down the road? Because it's probably not going to be this year, if we're just being honest. It could be next year. Who knows? But you get to that point, you get guys like Vince Williams Jr. and Jalen Wells and JJ Jackson's a different position. But Zach Edey, you get these guys playoff experience and put them in these moments and see how they handle it. And they learn from it and they grow. And then next year they're better prepared for it. And the year after that.
And OKC was in that spot last year.
100%.
They took their lumps in the playoffs. They had a lot of guys that didn't have playoff experience, and now they do. They got the 1 seed again, and now, we'll see how that goes. But
the even funnier waxy nostalgia to me, because at least Marcus Smart was on the team this year. This is why we shouldn't have let Dillon Brooks leave. Dillon Brooks was this group's version of the man who was just in this building or just walked by us, Tony Allen. We should have never let him walk. Is our memory so short-term that we do not remember how the Dillon Brooks era in Memphis ended less than 2 calendar years ago? It wasn't that long ago. It was not that long ago. Let me remind you, in case you forgot, he shot 31% in the playoff series loss to the Lakers. He said of LeBron James, he's old, I poke bears. LeBron then blew by him for the game-winning bucket in Game 4 of that series. And then after the Grizzlies lost in frankly embarrassing fashion, largely because of the way Dillon was talking, he went to the front office at his exit interviews and said, I'm not featured enough on offense. They just had me standing in the corner as a 3-and-D guy. I've got way more to my game than that. You know why that guy, Tony Allen, why he worked in the role he did for Grit and Grind? Because he knew his role. Tony Allen was not asking for 15 shots a game during the Grit and Grind era. Could Tony Allen make some offensive plays? Of course he could. But Tony Allen did not need 15 shots a game. Tony Allen also was not writing checks he couldn't cash against top 2 players of all time.
No, he was cashing them.
He was cashing the checks. Ask Kobe Bryant in the documentary. So
funny enough, I was looking at some stats earlier, looking for topics for this show. You know who leads the NBA in personal fouls?
Is it Dillon?
Dillon
Of course
Brooks.
it is.
Number 2 is also Jaren Jackson Jr., which is how I found the stat, but
There was
neither here or there.
There was probably no path forward to Dillon Brooks being on the Memphis Grizzlies after the way the 2023 playoffs ended. And we're talking about the money crunch that they're going to have to face this summer with paying Jaren and have Santi Aldama fit in the picture. Imagine if they paid Dillon. Dillon got 4 years, $80 million from the Rockets.
It's a big reason Marcus Smart's no longer on the roster.
Correct. Steven Adams, also another funny one.
Yep.
Steven Adams did not play for the last year and a half he was on the team. Had a major knee injury that apparently he and the team doctors did not see eye to eye on because they wanted him to get surgery basically right away. He held off on it for 9 months, tried to play at the start of the 23-24 season, and then decided, I need to get the surgery. And even now, don't get me wrong, I'm sure his veteran leadership is valuable in Houston. He's not playing much.
He's playing 12
minutes
minutes a game,
right?
3 points. 5 boards
Right.
per
And
game.
I know some people are going to say, well, those guys are vets and they add leadership, blah, blah, blah. At a certain point, you got to produce, man. And Marcus Smart was not producing. Steven Adams probably would not be playing much on this team. And Dylan, you know what? Back to a player I mentioned before. If you want this group's version of who Tony Allen might be, or a little bit of Dylan Brooks, I think it's Vince Williams Jr. We haven't seen a ton of it yet because he really emerged last season and he's played 13 games this year. But Vince is like the perfect mix to me of quiet off the court. Like, Vince in the locker room is very quiet and low key. But he's a little bit of a psycho on the court. I mean, he'll talk some trash now. I mean, like, this was last year when he was first coming onto the scene, second year in the league as a second-round pick, and he's talking trash to Steph and Luka and anyone they put in front of him. But that's the guy that's going to guard the other team's best offensive player, talk some trash, bring a little bit of that edge, and Vince has a little bit of an offensive game too. Like, I could easily see, maybe he is already, I could easily see Vince being a way better offensive player than Dylan, though. He can shoot a little bit, he can get downhill, he's got a little bit of playmaking chops, and again, he brings kind of that toughness and the defense on the other side that you're looking for, that edge. And again, I know he's young, so it's kind of tough to see that vision right now, but I think that he's going to grow into that role. So yeah, like, just the waxing nostalgia and the complete disregard for the circumstances around which some of these guys left a couple years ago. Like, if you didn't want the Grizzlies to salary dump Marcus Smart this season for that veteran experience, I get it. But I also completely understand. By the way, Zach Kleiman said that we tried to upgrade the roster. And when that path wasn't available, I think they then pivoted to, okay, how do we make sure we are as flexible as possible for the future to make sure we can stay competitive in the West? And the answer to that question was making sure you got off Marcus Smart's salary now while you could. Because again, if he wasn't playing in the playoffs, the amount of draft capital you would have had to attach to get a team to take his salary then would have gone way up. And that would have been legitimately detrimental to how they build in the future. And again, after 2023, there was no way they were moving forward with Dylan Brooks. I will always remember Zach Kleiman came into exit interviews that year, and he talked about a bunch of different players. And specifically, when he was asked about Dylan Brooks, he said, I'll hit on Dylan another day. Which I think was an indication of how the meeting between the two sides went. Where Dylan, after his horrible playoff series, where he put a spotlight on himself and the team for all this trash talk to LeBron James at that, he went in there completely oblivious and lacking all self-awareness and said, I need more shots. No. They made the right decision letting him walk. And Steven Adams, again, I get he was a big part of the success when he was on the floor. He was not on the floor for the last year and a half he was here. For a player with an injury that significant, if he doesn't see eye to eye with the medical staff, I don't see a path forward there. So, all that said, if they are healthy, I think they'll be okay. I think they will be fine. Josh Shoulder has to get in a better spot. Got to get Jaren back from the sprained ankle. But we have a schedule because the upcoming schedule is favorable. And if they want to get back on track, this is probably the stretch to do it in. Man, you think the Grizzlies are having a rough week. The Dallas Mavericks are having the worst month in the history of professional sports. Trading Luka. Anthony Davis gets hurt. Kyrie Irving, speedy recovery, tears his ACL. Sorry, what was the last one?
Quentin Grimes breakout.
Quentin Grimes, 40-plus point game for the 76ers after a completely unnecessary trade. Okay, so, yes, tonight in Dallas. That should be, hopefully, a get-right game. Sunday in New Orleans against the Pelicans, who are atrocious, although Zion's going crazy. Man, Zion in L.A. was looking good the other night. He was looking explosive. Yeah, he looks great right now, which is fun to see because he's one of the most exciting players in the league to watch when he's healthy. They've had the Suns number all season, although admittedly the
Suns are a mess. Everyone's got their number right now.
Suns are a mess. Although that game here last week, that was the last Grizzlies win, was admittedly a fun game that went to overtime. Wednesday night, the debut of the Grizzlies on Action News 5, simulcasting against the Utah Jazz. Again, another winnable game. And then next Friday, of course, Cleveland Cavaliers come to town. We already saw what those two teams looked like when they matched up in Cleveland, I think about 2 weeks ago. Really fun game. Grizzlies played very well in that game, had every chance to win. Cavs just made a few more shots, a few more plays at the end. But I'm excited to see how the Grizzlies look against them at home. So, but those next 4 games especially, man, go win like 3 of them, and I think you're going to be in a lot better spot. So, that's basically what I got on the Grizzlies. Do we have a Grizzlies on Action News 5 graphic somewhere in the chamber?
Not on me currently.
Okay, that's fine. But just a reminder, Wednesday against the Jazz, you can watch it for free on Action News 5 next Saturday, and we're going to talk more about this night ahead of it. But like we said, Tony Allen, number 9, grandfather, his jersey goes to Raptors at FedEx Forum. We've got pregame, we've got the game. We're going to carry the retirement ceremony postgame. We're going to have more extended coverage in our newscast that starts after that. So that's going to be a really fun night. Really, really looking forward to that. Yeah, I think it basically covers it. Grizz fans, you'll be cool. I don't know if they're winning it all this year because like we talked about, there is a team at the top of the West that clearly is head and shoulders above the rest of the pack. And if you could maybe catch them in the right circumstances in the series, who knows? But to me, I think that's a team that you're going to have to deal with for a long time. So it's about continuously building this thing up, making sure you put your roster in the best position and get these guys, especially some of these young guys, the Wells, the Edys, the Williams, JJ Jackson, whatnot, get them that playoff experience. So as you continue to go into the postseason every year, you feel better and better about this group. Mm-hmm. With that, we are going to take a quick 30-second timeout, and when we come back, the Memphis Tigers' regular season finale, can you believe it, is coming up tonight at FedEx Forum. We will talk about that and much more on Fast 5 Sports. Stick with us. Welcome back into Fast 5 Sports alongside Jacob Gallant. I am Matt Infield. Man, this college basketball season has flown by. Mm-hmm. Memphis Tigers, nationally televised game tonight at FedEx Forum. It is senior night, the last regular season game of the season. We kind of talked about last week, a little bit of a wonky schedule to close out the year, try and get as much TV exposure as possible on as many teams. But Tigers playing host to my alma mater, the USF Bulls, who they beat in Tampa already this season in a pretty commanding performance a couple weeks back. Tigers have clinched a regular season conference championship, at least a share of it, for the first time since 2013, the first time in Penny Hardaway's era as the head coach at Memphis. They did that with a bit of a nail-biting win at UTSA on Tuesday in a high school gym in San Antonio. Not an actual high school gym. Did you see it? I mean, it's rough. It's rough. But 22 turnovers in that game. So the Tigers probably made it more interesting than it needs to be. But we are in March. It is all about survive and advance, even if we are not in the NCAA tournament yet. So win on Tuesday. They clinched at least a share of the regular season conference championship. A victory tonight, they stand alone atop the AAC in the regular season. I thought North Texas was going to be upset by Charlotte last night, which would have clinched it for the Tigers even ahead of tonight. That did not happen. But if Memphis takes care of business at home, place where they've been good most of the season, against a team they've already beaten this season, I think they should be fine. The win of the week, the one that really set all this up, the one that we were talking about last week, Sunday against UAB. It, to me, like, that really showed what this team is all about and why this team is different from maybe some past petty teams. You're in a hostile environment against a hot team. You're down double digits second half. UAB is making tough shot after tough shot. I mean, there was one point in the second half where I think Memphis was shooting like 70% from the field, and UAB was shooting like 65%. But every time Memphis would throw a punch, you would be at the counter, back and forth. And, you're wondering, are they going to be able to get over the hump? And they just stuck with it. Last 10 minutes of that game, really dominated, clamped down on defense. Dane Danger and that beef we talked about with Yaxel Lindeborg, 2 games this season, advantage Dane 2-0. He was awesome. Again, I mean, he's just been one of the best bigs in the country, especially since Penny put him into the starting lineup. But he had 16 points, 17 boards in that game, was the best player on the floor for a lot of the contest. And PJ Haggerty put on a tough shot-making clinic in the second half, just living the mid-range. 25 for him in that game. And they prevailed. And really, again, kind of just like this tough, mentally resilient group that generally is going to stick with it for 40 minutes. And it takes a lot to beat them when they have the shot makers that they have on the outside. And now you've got this post presence in Dane, who's dominating down underneath the basket. And their depth has gotten a lot better throughout the season. So you got to feel really good about where they're at right now, because especially, we've talked about it, you got to have multiple options, and you got to have multiple kind of strokes, I guess, or clubs in the bag for how you can beat teams, especially this time of year. They clearly right now have one of the best 1-2 punches in the country. PJ Haggerty on the outside, Dane Danger on the inside.
Yeah, Dane Danger has led the team in scoring 4 of the last 6 games.
Yep.
So it's interesting. PJ Haggerty was basically the guy leading the team in scoring every night earlier in the season.
Yep.
And now they got another presence in there.
You know what's funny? I tweeted this last night. This was pretty remarkable to me. So PJ Haggerty is our feature on the Penny Hardaway show this week. So I was doing a little bit of research for feature I'm writing on him. Okay, PJ Haggerty last season at Tulsa. You want to hear his numbers?
Yeah.
31 games, 21.1 points per game, 5.5 rebounds, 3.8 assists, 49% from the field. PJ at Memphis this season, 30 games, 1 left in the regular season. 21.3 points per game, 5.4 rebounds per game, 3.7 assists per game, 49% from the field. I mean, it is a nearly identical stat line. Biggest difference is last season he was 29% from 3. This year he's 41. So become a much more accurate shooter from the outside, but remarkable consistency. And last year he was second in the American scoring. This year he's going to finish second in the American in scoring as well. So pretty insane consistency over a 2-year stretch with 2 different teams, different systems, different coaches, everything. So, and even the thing with him that I will say, there are some games where I sit there and I think if he could turn it on for 40 minutes, he would be putting up some crazy numbers. But him in the second half, and to be honest, Dane a lot of season was this way as well. For whatever reason, and Penny's talked about the film guys that they have that show them clips at halftime, those guys figure it out after halftime, and they turn on and they close these games out. And just having the guards on the outside and then having a dominant post presence inside in danger, not a lot of teams are going to have all the answers to the test when it comes to that.
A team that can adjust big at halftime is a team that can go a long way in the tournament too. Making those adjustments goes such a long way in the postseason when everything is magnified and everybody is on alert, playing their best. That's a great quality to have.
We have to give a lot of credit to Penny Hardaway. And we talked about it a little bit last week. And we discussed this with him on the show that we taped earlier this week too. I brought this up. I mean, I think we hit on a little bit last week. In September, when you change out the coaching staff, and it looks so chaotic, and everyone's like, oh my God, after what happened last season, this looks like another dumpster fire. Penny, to me, is absolutely the coach of the year at this conference. Yeah. You know, maybe I get kind of scared that the North Texas head coach, whose name is slipping my mind right now, maybe he'll get some love for finishing second in the conference with less talent than Memphis. But when you consider what the Tigers did in the non-conference and then roll it into, at the very minimum, a share conference championship in the regular season, and with a win tonight, the outright title, it has to be Penny. And I think this year is like a real year of validation for Penny, that he has grown as a coach. He learned how to adjust. He has been able to make tough decisions, stick with his guns, and have them work out. And that he's learned had to really build the roster because, last year he went for basically, I'm just going to grab the most talented guys I can. Did it work? And then this year he said, okay, I'm going to grab talent, but I'm going to grab talent with character, with defense, and with guys that are going to fit well together. So I think anyone who's had any doubts of him, he has erased a lot of them this year. Now, obviously, we got to see how the postseason goes, but I'll say this, too, about the NCAA tournament. I mean, there's got to be results eventually, but I don't know what you think. To me, that tournament is such a crapshoot that it's kind of tough to use that sample as like a real judgment of a coach, though. I mean, like there has to be results at a certain point, but like it's a one game basically, you're in or you're out sample.
I get what you're saying. When you're like an 8 seed and you don't make a deep run, it's hard to knock the coach for that because you're running through a gauntlet of a schedule.
Right.
You want to see some. You want to see
over
some
time, yes.
wins. You don't want to be knocked out first round every time.
Like,
I get what you're saying.
Do we think Penny's any less of a coach because of what happened against FAU in the first round game a couple years ago?
No.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But I will say this too. I think that this is the best team that he's had that I've covered. I wasn't here for the 22 team, or the 2021-22 team. There's been an interesting kind of discussion amongst some of us in the media and whatnot about which team is better, this one or the team 2 years ago that had Kendrick Davis, DeAndre Williams, won the conference tournament, and then lost to FAU. To me, I think this team is clearly better, in my opinion. I think this team is deeper. I think this team has more well-defined roles. They still have the high-end star power. They've got the Haggerty. They've got Danger. They've got guys who could really put the team on their back for a while. They kind of have a higher floor as well. I think they have more defenders. The 22-23 team had a guy in Alex Lomax who was just an insane defender and just an absolute pitbull on the ball. And this team is better shooting. So, like when I look at the team 2 years ago, there are a lot of guys on that team that I don't think would hit the floor for this team. Like someone like, do you remember the name Damare Franklin?
A little bit.
So he was a transfer from UIC, Chicago, Illinois, Chicago. And his eligibility was up in the air at the start of the season. And then he got eligible a couple games in, and Tiger fans were really excited for it. No disrespect to him, he would not play for this team. And like that was like a fifth option. Like that was like someone that played a relatively significant role.
Yeah.
Like Keontae Kennedy was the third best player on that team, third best scorer at least. Like Keontae Kennedy would be like PJ Carter on this team to me. So, I think this team is way better just in general. I think they're deeper. To me, the argument for the team 2 years ago is Kendrick Davis is probably the best player on either one of the two teams combined. Maybe you take DeAndre Williams second. I probably would take PJ Haggerty second. And that team was so just tough and competitive and had that dog in them. But I think this team, this year's group, clearly has the best shot to make a serious run in March, to me at least.
I would agree to that. And one of the big knocks on Penny going into the season was he hasn't won the conference yet.
Right, yeah.
So that's a good one on the resume too. But ultimately, just March is more important than everything else. So
100%.
We'll see. But I do agree with you. I think this is the best team he's had.
I also think, and we're into bracketology season. We're deep into it now. So let's say Memphis is 16th in the country as of this past Monday. They won at UTSA Tuesday. Let's say they win today.
Yeah.
And then let's say they run through the conference tournament next week. Let's say they pull off the sweep. They win the regular season and the conference tournament. I know there are a lot of bracketologists out there that have them as like a 6 or 7 right now. If they do that, to me, them being any lower than a 5 would be egregious. I don't care about the conference schedule and the teams they played or whatever. At a certain point, this resume, when you include the non-conference and potentially a sweep of the regular season and conference tournament, putting them any lower than 5 would be just like a disgrace because they've proven they can play with the best of the best.
I agree. I think there's probably factors to it as well with there's probably a team above them that's going to struggle in their conference, or there's plenty to be unexpected. But I agree with you. I do think that they should definitely elevate them to a 5 at that point.
So we'll see. 8 o'clock tip at FedEx Forum tonight. A little bit of a later start. They'll do the senior day festivities and all that beforehand. So it should be a fun one. Hopefully, packed house. I kind of like. I don't know if I've covered a Friday night college game before, or if I haven't. They have some like very early in the season, but not in conference play.
Yeah.
So to close out the regular season with that, to me, is kind of cool. All right, we're gonna take one more break here on Fast 5 Sports. We have got more exciting stuff to talk about in terms of free sports here on Action News 5 and the NFL. Come on, baby. It's a content machine. Keeps rolling 24/7, 365. So we'll hit on that in 30 seconds. Be right back. All right, welcome back to the final segment of Fast 5 Sports. What do we want to hit on first? Let's hit on this first. We talked about how the Grizzlies are going to have these 5 games throughout the end of the regular season that you'll be able to watch for free right here on Action News 5. Baseball season is, spring training's here. The regular season is right around the corner, and we are excited to share, especially us two, a couple of Cardinals fans here. You will be able to watch the Cardinals for free on both Action News 5 and Action News 5 Plus. Do we have the number of games yet?
So it's going to be at least 10. There's been 6 announced so far.
Some good games on there, too.
Yeah, we got a Dodgers game on there. We got a Brewers game on there. Some
Phillies?
really good stuff.
Phillies? Or am I making that up?
I could pull it up, but
I can pull it up
but
as
yeah,
well.
so we'll have some on the channel 5.1, some on 5.3. But yeah, I've been catching some of the Braves game there. They look good,
Yep.
It's free baseball right from your antenna. So
Here we go. I've got it right here. So we've got Friday, April 11th, right after the start of the season against the Phillies. 2 weeks after that, home Friday night game against the Brewers. Against the Royals on May 16th. And the Royals, fun young team. That's what's the rivalry? Because it's the two Missouri. Is it I-70?
70, is it 70 or 75? One of those.
Yeah, no, 75. 75 goes
70?
to Florida. I think it's I-70.
Okay.
Either way, Cardinals, Royals, battle for Missouri.
One of the
Rangers, a
highlights.
little 2011 World Series rematch on May 30th. Dodgers, like we mentioned before, on Friday, June 6th, and then June 20th against the Reds. And again, we've got more in the works as well.
More to come, yeah.
Yeah, so really excited about that. On top of the Grizzlies stuff we have, on top of the Braves games that we already have on Action News 5. So fun stuff. It is really cool to work in a place where we've got all this great, both local and just important sports content in general. Because we were talking yesterday, this city is full of, I think it's definitely a Cardinal city first and foremost, but there's a good amount of Braves fans as well. So having those teams as well as the Grizzlies, man, fun stuff all the way around. So we're really looking forward to that, especially, like I mentioned, a couple of really big Cardinals fans right here. So I will surely be tuning into all that.
Yeah, I'll be tuning in. Hopefully the team surprises us this year because,
It's basically the same team as last year, essentially.
Yeah.
Maybe with some young
different
guys.
first baseman.
Yeah, so maybe with some young guys that surprise a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, let's hit NFL real quick because there's always NFL news and notes, and especially we're in the offseason, free agency right around the corner, the combine is done, draft talk starting to pick up, trade rumors starting to pick up steam, and at the head of that right now is a Mid-South product. Oxford native, Ole Miss alum, DK Metcalf said, I want out of Seattle. Apparently requested a trade earlier this week. Seahawks are asking for reportedly a first and a third-round pick.
Which they are not going to get.
Nope. DK also apparently wants $30 million a year on a new contract. So I think
maybe.
I don't know if DK is getting 30 because
I feel like there could be a team desperate enough to talk them into it.
so
But they're definitely not getting a first and third for him. That's not happening.
So 30 a year would put him like, I think he's looking for like a contract similar to like what Brandon Ayuk got last year before he tore his ACL with the 49ers, something like that. I'll say this. I think DK is really good. I think DK might be more of like a high-end 2 than a true like alpha dog 1.
Yeah.
And I think we kind of saw that a little bit last year with, and granted, DK got hurt and he missed a little bit of time. But when he got back, the Seahawks made a pretty conscious effort that we're going to run this pass game through Jackson Smith and Jigba instead of DK Metcalf. Like, DK's played the league 6 years now. He's been over 1,000 yards 3 times. He was at 992 this past year, and he missed 2 games, so he probably would have been this year. I think the thing that's confused about DK's game is he is this hulking outside X receiver.
Yeah.
His contested catch stuff is not all that good. I saw a stat yesterday. It's like 35% or something, which for a guy in that prototype receiver, you want that to be way higher. So I think I don't know that I would pay DK 30 a year unless I had a lot of money, which apparently I saw a clip actually just before I got in here that Daniel Jeremiah with NFL Network, who's obviously very well connected, he said apparently the belief throughout the league is that the Patriots are going to land DK, which
Okay.
they have.
I could see that.
They have a ton of cap space.
They've been
They
linked to
desperately
kinda
need
everybody.
a somewhat top tier receiver for Drake May. So I could definitely see it. I don't know about this first and third round pick stuff. I don't know about the $30 million a year, but I'm not saying DK is a bad player in the slightest. I just don't know that I consider DK like a tier 1 or a tier 2 receiver. But with Drake May throwing the ball, it could be fun.
So the only receivers making at least 30 right now are Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Ayuk, and Tyreek Hill. So that's pretty elite company.
Yeah, if you're telling, so DK would essentially become like the 8th.
6th or 7th. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about all that. And I think that, like, to be honest, I would pay T. Higgins that money before I would pay DK Metcalf.
I'm a big T. Higgins believer, but yeah.
Now T got franchise tagged by the Bengals, which honestly kind of segues perfectly into our next talking point. They tag T. Higgins. They have to pay Jamar Chase, and that price went way up after the season Jamar Chase just had, winning the Triple Crown. So now they have let Trey Hendrickson, who was one of the best edge rushers in the league last season, one of the league leaders in sacks, they've told him he could seek a trade. So apparently they are leaning all the way into the bit of, we've got Joe Burrow, we've got Jamar Chase, we've got T. Higgins. We're going to try to score 40 points per game on you and have one of the worst defenses in the league.
Worked so well last year.
Yeah. Now, I will say with them last year, they had a couple of games where it comes down to one possession, and if you flip a couple of those, we could be talking about a different story. They also had the week 1 just absolute clunker against the Patriots, which just looks so abysmal in hindsight now.
Yeah.
I get it. I mean, to me, this just tells me they are going to be heavily invested on the defensive side of the ball in the draft. You have to be. I mean, the defense was so bad.
They should spend every pick on defense at this point.
Yeah, because, good.
Yeah, if you're going to let your best defender walk
on an already
horrendous defense, you got to do something. So, I don't know. It's an interesting strategy. I don't know that I understand it, but I do understand if Hendrickson's wanting a big contract to maybe limit the spending, but at the same time, it's like...
I also wonder how much of their calculus is... I think, to be honest, they drafted Jermaine Burton out of Alabama in the 3rd or 4th round last year to be a potential T. Higgins replacement, but Jermaine Burton fell that far in the draft because there were apparently some major character red flags, and those character red flags came to life in a big way in his rookie season, like some pretty serious allegations about like a domestic incident, getting evicted from an apartment. Apparently there's pictures of him at a casino the night before a game, a whole bunch of stuff going on there. So I wonder if that changed things A little bit. Yeah, I'm just looking back at the Bengals schedule. Yeah, you remember they lost that game to Chiefs in Week 2 early in the season, 26-25. Lost to Commanders on Monday Night Football on the Jaden Daniels to Terry McLaurin. Just, I mean, one of the best plays of the season. They lost a lot of close games. I will say that. I don't know that they can win a Super Bowl with their defense as constructed and without taking a major step and probably getting some immediate contributions from rookies on that side of the ball. But, like, Burrow was insane last year.
Yeah.
To be anyone that doesn't have Burrow in that elite tier, I disagree with them. Now, is he in the same tier as, I think we still, even after the Super Bowl, I'm not going to be a prisoner of the moment. I think most of us still probably have Patrick Mahomes in a tier of his own. And then I think you probably have Allen and Lamar next because of those guys are both elite players and just physical specimens. But then Burrow is right behind those guys to me. And the way Burrow played last year, especially coming off a wrist surgery that a lot of people were worried about, I mean, he was incredible. So I get wanting to run it back with that offense with the guy who was the best receiver in the league last year at T. Higgins again. It's just a matter of, like, are they going to be able to stop anyone?
Yeah.
Because if they can be a problem, though. And I will probably be betting Burrow MVP somewhere.
Assuming everyone stays healthy, that's a pretty good.
Yeah, because, like, I think
that feels good.
I think even if they would have snuck into the wild card this year with how Burrow played, I think he would have got some pretty serious traction.
Yeah.
So, we'll see. The Bengals don't spend money, though. The owner, Paul Brown, or the Brown family, they are notoriously cheap. So,
well, they keep franchise tagging T. Higgins instead of giving him a long-term deal. So I
think, by the way, the fact that a team could tag a player 2 years in a row is also ridiculous to me. So
it feels wrong.
What else we got? Deebo Samuel traded from the 49ers to the Commanders for a 5th-round pick. Kind of makes sense. Think about Adam Peters, the Commanders' new GM as of last year, is an old 49ers front office guy. They needed a second receiver.
Yeah.
I don't know how much Deebo has left in the tank, but I do think this is a spot that could work for him because Cliff Kingsbury does dial up a lot of like wide receiver screens and stuff at the line of scrimmage.
I do like that trade. I'm with you. I'm not sure how much Deebo has in him at this point, but for the value they gave up, I think it's definitely worth taking that shot to get somebody besides McLaurin.
And you've got someone in McLaurin who can operate as your true number one downfield, running real routes. Get Deebo on some easy button stuff. Just get him the ball in his hands. Maybe he still has some juice in the tank. Probably not surprising that we're talking about him potentially being washed at, what is Deebo?
He's 20.
Because Deebo got drafted in 2019. So Deebo is 29.
Yeah.
But, I mean, just plays such a physical brand of football. So it's probably not totally surprising we're talking about him in this light. But, number 2 receiver, go draft. I think they're going to draft a running back. If Jaden Daniels keeps playing the way he did last year and the roster gets a little bit better, I mean, they're going to be a real threat once again.
Yeah.
And to me, there's, people are going to talk about sophomore slumps and whatnot. There is nothing about watching that dude that tells me that there's much of a sophomore slump coming. Although people, to be fair, probably said the same thing about C.J. Stroud, and he hit a little bit of one, but Jay Daniels is a special, special player. So I think the Commanders are going to be in good shape for the foreseeable future. On the note of C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans, an inter-division trade, they land Christian Kirk from the Jaguars after apparently the Jaguars were going to cut him, and then Texans gave up a 7th-round pick to get him. Again, I don't know how much Kirk has left in the tank. He didn't look great last season, but as the slot receiver in Houston, where you're not going to have Tank Dell for the entire season, it looks like, I think it sounds like they're not going to bring back Stephon Diggs coming off the torn ACL. So probably need at least someone else who could take some of the pressure off Nico Collins, who is an absolute stud. So Kirk in the slot is fine.
It's not bad. It's interesting I understand it, but it's interesting from the Jaguars' point where they're trying to rebuild, and between him and cutting Evan Ingram.
Yep, which I'm going to bring up too.
You're letting Trevor Lawrence's targets all leave while you're trying to rebuild.
Two receivers connected to some of these moves that we talked about in this segment. Draft a lot of Jackson Smith and Jigba and Brian Thomas Jr. in fantasy next year. I mean, Brian Thomas Jr., the rookie season he had, and the rookie season he had with Mac Jones throwing him the ball for a good amount of it was special stuff. So
They're going to feed him the ball.
yeah. Like you mentioned, they cut Evan Ingram. So I'm curious the direction of the front office. Although James Gladstone, their new GM, comes from the Rams, I'm a heck of a lot more confident in him than anything Trent Baalke was doing. So
Yeah.
so bad that they fired him weeks into their coaching search because no legitimate candidate wants to talk to them. So that's that. All right. Like we talked about, draft season is in full swing. Seth Hennigan and Rock Taylor, Memphis Tigers at the Combine last week. I think they both put on a pretty good show. Seth tested out pretty well athletically, and come on, this is the highlight of it all. If we got this video here.
Caught on
So
our
Seth
cameras there. There was obviously
ran the
Steven
40-yard
next
dash
to him.
twice. This was his first
So
one. I
in
think
terms
him
of
and
the
Brady Cook
casual
was
look,
the
he was
only two
selectively
quarterbacks
aggressive with that
to
one.
run the
Nice,
40.
nice.
There you go. Okay, let's try it, baby.
Hennigan,
So Seth ran a
4.78.
4.78 here, and then he followed up
With
with
Jerry
a
Jones in the
4.77.
building, I think that makes Spade the second
Look
best
what
actor
Seth
here
does
today.
by the way,
as soon as
I
he
must
sees
say,
the camera
Jerry
is on
Jones and Landman.
him. Choose the
Phenomenal.
buttons. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
I'm not saying
Throw
this
it
just
down.
because, you know,
One more time. Got to rep Memphis, baby. I love that. Obviously, Seth is someone that was loyal to the Tigers all 4 years. He was in college. I think he's done his draft stock a lot of favors. We talked about it. His Senior Bowl performance. If you know what the relative athletic score test is, which kind of puts athletes at positions on like a scale of 0 to 10, he graded out pretty well. I'm not saying Seth is Lamar Jackson, but I think that he's done his draft stock a lot of favors over the last couple of months. So, draft is May, I believe. Is it early May?
Don't know it off the top of my head.
It is, the end of April, the 24th
April 24th.
through the 26th in Green Bay at Lambeau Field, which is going to be a sight to see. So, that'll be fun.
The setup looks pretty awesome for
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Title Town and all that. If you've ever been up there, I mean, it is a football town through and through because the Packers are the universe there. Packers are everything. So,
Yeah.
it'll be cool. I'm glad that they finally got the draft there because they've been trying for a long time. That's kind of like the last act of Mark Murphy,
Yeah.
team president, before he retires. So it'll be cool to see. All right, we've got some trivia this week in the form of a Sporkle
get it.
quiz that I'm at the controls of. So if you want to throw
I
this
haven't
up.
seen these questions either, so we're gonna tag team these together. Let's see what we can do.
I'm at the controls. Hopefully there's – okay. Here we go. 20 questions. The Grizzlies are a member of the
Okay,
Southwest Division.
That's pretty easy.
Longest-serving Grizzlies head coach, 415 regular season games over 3 different stints. It's got to be Lionel, right?
Got to be Lionel, right? I don't
It is
remember
Lionel
him
Hollins.
having 3 stints. That's what
Yeah.
threw me off.
Grizzlies acquired future star.
Oh, draft day
I
trade.
think
with
it
what
was
team?
the Hawks. It was the Hawks.
Okay.
Which of these players had the highest career points per game scoring average in Grizzlies history?
It's got to be Rudy, right?
Oh, this
Or
is
did
good.
he play too many games to hit that?
I think it's actually Ja now, but
Well, it does say had. I wonder if that has been surpassed.
I'm going to go with the wild card here.
Okay.
Nice.
Good shot.
Grizzlies
Vancouver, of
franchise
course.
originated in, of course, Vancouver. Grizzlies select number 2 overall pick, but refuse to play for them. That'd be one Stevie franchise. Big country, big man from Oklahoma State. Grizzlies' first ever selection in the NBA draft, Bryant Reeves.
Of course, Bryant Reeves, the legend.
Grizzlies' career leader in regular season points scored is one Mike Conley. School has produced the most draft picks for the Grizzlies in franchise history. Man,
Ooh.
you want to take your shot here?
I'm between Kansas and Arizona. I'm thinking Arizona. I can picture a few, but
UCLA.
UCLA,
True.
okay.
Okay.
that was
All
a
right.
tough one.
Most successful season in Grizzlies franchise history, 2012-13. And they were swept by the Spurs. Grizzlies mascot,
Of course.
Grizz. Only player to be selected
Self-positive.
first round of the NBA draft straight out of high school by the Grizzlies.
That would be Stromile
Miles
Swift.
right? No.
No.
Kendrick
Perkins.
Perkins.
He was drafted by the Grizzlies? I don't
Good thing they
remember
traded
that.
him. Grizzlies currently play their home games, of course, at FedEx Forum. Grizzlies have their highest winning percentage in the regular season all time against.
Which of these teams? I mean, the Hornets seems like a fair guess for any team.
I'm going to go with the Hornets. The Wizards, true. Wizards
okay,
are also
that
a
makes
fair
sense
pick.
too.
Only player in Grizzlies history to be named All NBA First Team. I believe that's Mark, right?
Yeah, that's Mark. Yeah.
Yep. Former Grizzlies center Hamed Haddadi made history in the NBA's first player.
Ooh,
Wow,
I
that's a
remember. I
heck
remember
of a
Haddadi.
question.
I don't remember what country he was from. Ooh.
I'm going to throw a dart at the wall here. Iran. Okay.
Ryan.
Grizzlies played their first game in 95.
Yes. 95.
Of course, the two Canadian teams
Raptors.
joined the league together. So the answer to which of these teams joined the NBA the same year as the Grizzlies, the Toronto Raptors. Grizzlies moved to Memphis in
2001.
what was it? 01, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And finally, during the 2015-16 season, the Grizzlies set an NBA record for the most players signed during a single season. Man, I bet last season, I think this quiz is a little bit older because I bet last year's team made a run at that.
Didn't they set the NBA record last
Yeah,
year?
for players played. I'm going to go with 28 here. And that's that.
Solid.
All
16
right, nice
out
job.
of 20.
80%? That's
I'll take it.
I forgot where that lands on the college scale. Is that 3.0? Maybe? Sure, why not?
Shout out to Stromile Swift.
That was a good quiz. Yeah, that was a couple of softballs, but a couple questions there that I definitely didn't know the answer to off the top of my head. So that's that. All right, like I said, big sports night ahead. Grizzlies in Dallas to take on the Mavericks right here in the 901. Tiger Senior Night, final regular season game as they host USF, looking for an outright AAC regular season championship. And we've got a lot more great stuff on the way. It is March. As John Rothstein would say, we sleep in May. But we don't sleep in May because we have the NBA playoffs in May. So, and hopefully the Grizzlies are still playing at that juncture. But for now,